Karen, welcome to Gloved. Thank you very much for coming on. You bring great experience from the footballing world and the world in general. Lots of travel, lots of highs, lots of lows, and a career that's still going really strong. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So first and foremost, you just come back, a nice little winter break.
Yeah, I had a great time. Went back to California. Spent some good quality time with my parents and my friends from high school and college and everything. So I feel very refreshed and I got some sun, so that's always a plus.
Yeah, that's priceless. Little injury towards the end of 2018, but strong, fit.
Yeah, the last couple of years have been filled with little niggly injuries and stuff. I tore a ligament in my ankle when I was away with England, but yeah, now recovered and ready to go for the new year.
Oh, cool. So it's a big year as well, World Cup year.
Yeah, definitely. We're all geared up now for our winter training camp in Qatar with England and just getting prepped for the World Cup, and everything's going to come down to that May, June time. So just kind of got to graft away and hope you're doing the right things.
So you guys are getting a lot of attention, obviously making the country really, really proud. What are you thinking for this World Cup coming?
It's an exciting time, I think, for women's football, but like football in general, obviously off the back of what the guys did, and obviously like the Premier League is one of the top leagues in the world, so there's always attention, on the Prem. But in terms of the national scene, I'm really excited about the youth that's coming through at England at the moment. I think we've got a great opportunity to one up, if not double up, the medals from 2015. So our goal is always going to want to be to win any competition that we're in. Yeah.
So lots of good competition, club and country. How are you finding that?
Yeah, I think there's always been a good level of competition. Obviously, England, we've had some great goalkeepers come through, ever since I joined the England setup. Yeah. And I think the goalkeeper union has always been something that is a special dynamic, and I mean you'll know what that's like. But we went from kind of not being in necessarily the best place to really working on and focusing on that, and developing it to a place where we all feel supported when we go away, and we've tried to emulate that in the club aspect as well. So I think it's important that people understand that it's a unique position, that it's a tough place to be. There's only one position, so there's always going to be people that want to play that are going to be disappointed. So we've worked really hard to kind of nurture that and the understanding and the support, and we've made sure that that's kind of a really important thing to understand when you come to the team. So for me, being like a long-standing number one, seeing young talent come through, it kind of reminds you of what you were like at that age, and the energy they have, the fire that they have, and it's trying to nurture them, to understand the responsibilities of being a number one, and seeing things that you can help them develop in, but then also using their enthusiasm to kind of keep pushing you on in competition. So we've got a really great goalkeeper, Nelly Roebuck, coming through. She started working with us when I think she was 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And she's just gone like that. I think, in my opinion, I see her as being the future England number one. And I'm really honored to have been a part of her journey, and I hope I can continue to be a part of her journey. But her enthusiasm, and it's infectious. So we bounce off each other all the time at training. I think she's a good kid, and we've got a really good relationship. So she forces me to continue to want to be my best and stuff. And I know that once I do decide to move on, my shoes will be filled pretty well, I think. But it can be tough. I think every goalkeeper's experience, ups and downs. I've had injuries, and I've had to miss opportunities because of those injuries, and they're always going to give someone else an opportunity, and she's done well to capitalize on that, and it's been hard to see it from a selfish standpoint, because you always want to be involved, but if you look at the bigger picture, I'm really proud that she's done well, because at the end of the day, you want to win trophies, you want to obviously be the one playing, but you also want your team to do well, and it's hard to manage those two things.
Yeah, I think you say the bigger picture is like, as an athlete, as a winner, is, you know, it's a skill. It's a skill. You know, you're not given the bigger picture. You know, you referenced earlier, like, I'm sure as much fire and as much, you know, aggression and things are going well in the game, the bigger picture might not be there for her yet. So your kind of calmness and your overseeing of things is really going to help her. But ultimately that doesn't help your career.
Exactly.
So, you know,
yeah.
it's a really interesting balance, and I'm glad you talked about it, because, you know, the goalkeeping world and the goalkeeping union is such an interesting one, and it's a hard one to explain, because, you know, I find, especially you're going to find it, that the higher you go, the tougher it is, because you know, especially kind of the modern concept of football teams. You know, a few years ago, even at the highest, it was like you had a one, and then you had other people around you. But now the concept is, I want a good one. I want the guy who's not playing to be more than capable, if not as capable as the one. And then the third choice needs to be there if anything happens. So, you know, there's people.
Intense.
Their shoes are ready to be filled no matter what happens, be it an illness, be it a drop in form, you know, be it an injury. And that's a really hard one to deal with.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And you need to be really calm and be, you know, in tune with yourself to be able to handle that. You know, I've had it a lot over recent years, like a lot, you know, with people taking opportunities. And like you say, you want them to do well because you want the team to do well. And then, you know, there's another thought in the back of your head, you know, hope obviously it doesn't go too well, because then they don't get back in. It's a constant. Yeah.
And it's sometimes, I think, I don't know how you found it, but did you ever find yourself kind of like judging like how you're feeling about that? You know, you're like, oh, like I want them to do well because, you know, I like who they are and I want the team to win. But then if I don't get back into the squad, and then I'm like, oh, am I an ass for feeling this way?
Yeah,
you know,
you end up with an absolute mixture of answers.
Yeah.
If you were to put them next to each other, like neither of them actually balance out. But I think ultimately, like the conversation in your head, mine always ends with, I want the team to do well. And
that's something that we've never really had to deal with in the past. You know, there's, as you say, it was kind of always like a big gap between, say, 1 and 2 and 3, and then that development has always been, you know, the point of having those players there. But like you say, it's never been so close before. So there is a bit of a dynamic, you know, and you know, how have you found it when someone does get on a roll, like as, you know, in goal?
Yeah.
How does the team kind of, you know, change in terms of how they rally around them?
Yeah.
You know, that's another dynamic as well, because like, you're okay, well, what's my value then? Like, what do I bring?
That's where I think, like, you really have to dig deep in your leadership skills, if you like, to let people know that it's okay to, you know, because you've obviously got relationships on the pitch with people where you've got an awful lot of respect for each other for what you do. Then you've actually got genuine friends who, you know, who you spend time with, who are friends with your family. You've got people that you don't necessarily get on with, but, you know, you respect because they're teammates, who might get a little kick at the fact that it's not going well for you. So I think for me personally, like, I've had it a fair bit recently. I've just gone straight away as best I could to say, even if it just sounds awkward and no one's interested, I'll say, listen guys, I'm right behind what's going on here, so don't worry about me. Be however you need to be, you know, be supportive, be like you were with me, because it helped me. So so be the guy that you know, he's playing at the moment, let's support him, let's support the team. I'll handle my business. I'm trying to get back in, I'm not giving up, but I'll handle my business, so just don't worry about me, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Has been the best way for me to handle it.
It's a really interesting message, because I think that's a really touchy subject.
Yeah, it's
very touchy. Especially
at my club now, Burnley. We're a very British squad, and very aggressive with the banter's very aggressive, and it's kind of it's fun. And we talked about it's almost in a flirty way that the more you get means the more the guys like you.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, when it comes to something like this, like not playing at the moment, I wouldn't want them to all of a sudden just switch off from me, like think I need to leave him alone, because you know, I can handle it. I try to put things in the grand scheme of things. I'm not playing at the moment, but you know, it's not the worst thing in the world that can happen to me. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
if there was something going on in my family, or for instance, I'd expect that to be respected, and the guys do that. You know, as I'd imagine in your dressing room, but when it comes to football and things like that, you know, keep the flow, keep the energy. Let's you know, we push in the same direction, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy to be negative.
Yeah.
You know, like, how much harder is it to find the opportunities and things, to find kind of the positives and things that you can kind of control those things, you know, as opposed to letting someone else, you know, something that someone said dictate how you feel about things, or, you know, you can choose not to do something, you can choose to have a bad attitude, or like lay in bed, you know, or not speak to somebody, or you can choose to actually make someone's day better. You know, I think that's a big part of just growing up as well, though. You know, like being a good person, like you're choosing to do the right things at the right times. I think it makes it freer to just go and get on with your football as well. You know, if you're not dealing with you know, extra battles, rather than just being able to play football, enjoy it, and hopefully get yourself back in the team and play because you love the game, not because of, you know, because it's quite political, football. But you know, as well as things like that, you've had a few. I've been really blessed. I've never really had any major injuries in my career. I've been really, really lucky. Yeah. But you know, you've had some big ones with the leg breaks and, you know, the little niggles. Yeah. How have you, you know, you had some really early in your career, and you've had some more recently. Looking back, handling them, what's the difference? What's the difference in how you've dealt with the situation? What's the difference in how you've come back from the situation, mindsets? Yeah, I think, I don't know if it was because it was so early. My first leg break was in, first one, that sounds bad. Yeah. It's so normal now. I know. Yeah, the first one, I broke my tibia in 1999, and I was a sophomore in high school. So 15 years old. And it was a horrendous challenge. Like, basically, I went down for a ball at someone's feet, and they just slid into my legs and just
when you were going with your hands.
Tibia. Yeah, so that was fun. And I went through so many kind of emotions, like, so quickly. Yeah. And I can still remember it so vividly, that I'd gone to the hospital, waited for hours for someone to tell me that I'd broken my leg, you know. How was it? Was it like It wasn't compound, like there were no bones coming out, but it just looked like I had a grapefruit on the front of my shin, you know, so I could tell something wasn't right. And then, so I came home, had, like, you know, the old school plaster casts on, literally went all the way up to my hip, and I was just stuck like this. And I was sitting in my dad's, like, reclining chair in the living room. And I just remember, like, I was just kind of in disbelief. I couldn't believe it had really happened, because that's such a pivotal time in your career, especially in the States, because that's when a lot of university and, like, college coaches are coming looking at you for scholarships to be recruited and stuff. So in my head, it was just kind of like, catastrophe, you know, like, this couldn't be the worst timing. And I just remember my dad came over and he said to me, like, if you want to stop playing, that's fine, like, it's okay. And I just looked at him and I was just like, how could you say that to me? You know, it's like, I do not want to stop playing because of this. And, like, why do you think he said that? I think he just wanted to know that, like, he was more supporting you for you. Yeah, exactly. Not because he wanted you to do something in the game. Yeah. Well, that's the great thing as well. It's like my parents never had any expectations of me making anything from myself in football, because it wasn't in their preconceptions of the game. Yeah. That girls didn't play football anyway. Yeah. So in the States, obviously it was more popular, but they never thought, oh, you'll go to college, or, oh, you'll do this because of this. Like, you'd probably do that anyway. Yeah. And so I think, A, he was upset that I was just in agony. Yeah, of course. But B, I think he just didn't, he's just like, it's up to you, it's your decision. You know, like, he never wanted me to do anything because it's what he wanted me to do. Which is nice, you know, I was lucky with that as well. Yeah, and I've seen so many kids now, you know, boys and girls here and there, like, where parents set these expectations out as soon as they're
I'm
born.
yeah, and almost like 5-6 years old. You know,
Yeah.
I know guys who are in academies, and I'm like, whew.
Yeah, it's like your pathway's laid out, and it's like if you don't have a backup plan, then you're screwed.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? So yeah, I remember sitting in that chair going, no, I'm gonna overcome this. This isn't gonna define me. And that was always, from that point onwards, I think how I viewed my injuries and my opportunities was like I was gonna make something of a crappy situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what happened. Like it took a long time. Like I knew it was going to be a long road, and I knew what I struggled with in terms of, like, I knew I had to be working with someone that would push me, you know. So to get through the recovery, we went to a physical therapy type specialist. You know, I needed, even at 15 years old, I knew I needed someone to kind of, you know, get me out there and motivate me.
Yeah, because if a guy broke his leg at school, he just literally had the cast on and then took it off.
There you go.
And then, had one leg like this and one leg like
exactly.
this. And just hopefully that they even eventually, but obviously you were like, you even knew then that,
yeah,
you know, you just mindset was, this one needs to be right for me to set up what I'm doing kind of thing.
And it was terrifying.
Which is not like most young people at school.
No, you just, and the thing is like you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of kids probably wouldn't realize that, you know, they needed to, you know, have equal muscle mass on both sides. Like I was pretty fortunate because the doctor I was seeing kind of was a medical specialist in sport as well, you know. So he was kind of like, okay, we're gonna have to do this and this and this, but I just knew at the time, like, I probably would have preferred just to stay in bed, you know, but I needed that push. So that's kind of, I think, what I always referred back to in terms of injury. And I'd seen friends go through it as well, and they were kind of, they didn't want to be defined in that sense either.
Yeah.
So I managed to kind of get through it and keep playing, and it was scary, you know, having to go back into tackles when you're a kid, and you're like, this is how it happened, and once you get into the first one and you threw it, you're like, oh, actually, okay, I can do this. You know, and it only went and happened like in 2003 again.
Yeah.
And I broke the other one, so.
Similar sort of thing?
Practically, yeah. There was a through ball I came to clean up, and the forward missed the ball and kicked me square in the legs. So broke the other one, so it was another major setback in that regard, and that was a bad one. I didn't have to have surgery, but it took a long time to get through that, and I had lots of doubts. That one was, I was like probably the lowest lows I could have ever been at, because I didn't know if I was ever going to be the same type of person, the same type of player. Like that one really knocked my confidence, and I definitely thought about just packing it in.
What did you have around you at that time? What?
Well,
so what year you're like?
Yeah, that I was really lucky at that time. So I was at Cal State Fullerton, the university that I went to. I had a good support group around me. My coach, Ali, was a guy that I had known since I was probably like 11, 12. So he kind of knew my background as well. And so he was really, really supportive and pushed me at the right times. But then there was also a guy that I worked with. His name was Ken Reviza, and he just passed away last year, and he was a massive mentor of mine, and he's the reason that, like, on my gloves I have Get Big on my gloves, because he that was like his thing that he would always say to me. He's like, you know, when you're getting back on the pitch, you pick a point in the stands that reminds you of how you feel when you're your best, and you know, that was his phrase to me, so I always kind of hang on to that one. But we sat down, you know, like at an office like this, and he like walked me through a lot of visualization, even in the physical mending process of, you know, like my bone healing and the positivity around that, like just trying to think positively about
like the amazing human body.
About where you want to be, what you want to do, you know, and just what your body can do and how you can achieve that, you know. So he was a massive part of you know, my recovery, but also where I am today.
But that's great that you had, you know, first of all, at 15 you had the sports medical advice from the doctor. Is that almost lucky, or would that have been normal?
I think we specifically probably mentioned that, you know, we're athletic, and like this is what I do, you know, as a kid, like these are my interests. if we wouldn't have mentioned that, we probably would have just gone to any
Yeah.
orthopedic surgeon.
Who would have just been keen on you getting the cast
like
off.
you can walk, you're fine.
Yeah.
You know, and so maybe it is a bit of luck. I don't know that we mentioned that, or that I was just that football mad that they probably already knew.
That's good. That's good though that you saw that.
But I do feel like there's little pieces of luck that have, despite the bad things happening, they've kind of followed me, because that particular university was well known for its kinesiology department. So, like the sports sciences and the medical athletic training and physiotherapy and stuff. So I was quite lucky in that regard,
So got yourself back, got yourself ready, and good to push on again.
Yeah.
And did they believe in you as a goalkeeper and as a player?
Yeah, I think it was a hard time, because it's hard because you don't want to like blow your own trumpet, do you?
No.
But like at that time, there was no doubt in my mind that I was the number one, and I was always going to be the number one. But like every time someone came in and started to do well, I just kind of started to doubt myself a little bit. Go, will I get back to where I was? That sort of thing. And I had again a lot of coaches kind of around me that like you'll be fine. You just need to get through this. And I think I remember a couple of particular conversations where I was like, well, what about this and what about that? And they were like, no, like, let's just break this down into kind of more manageable pieces, and we'll work on it. And it's part of the process instead of, catastrophizing.
That's the hardest thing as a young, you just like, when am I going to be fit?
Yeah.
And someone telling you don't need to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
We need to get this little bit right, then this little bit right.
Yeah, you just want to shake them. You're like, no, I need to work on this.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. We'll deal with that. I'll just limp for a bit, but I'll be okay.
Yeah. I was lucky at that stage, but I was fortunate enough as well at that time, just before I broke my leg in that in 2003, to have been called up with England.
So with had the US national team, they'd obviously must have had conversations with you, or had you stated at a young age that I want to be part of? So
with the US team, I did really well my first year at university and got national recognition, and I got some invitations to join the under 21 national team with the US, and I went to a couple training camps, and I was like in awe of it at the time. And we went to like the national training center, and I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. Met loads of like top international players and stuff, but from a really young age, my grandparents, my uncles, they would always send me England kit.
Really?
Everything I had. I mean, I was a massive United supporter when I was a kid. So I was a kid. And I loved Peter Schmeichel. He was like my hero.
Yeah, he's one of mine.
And I wore his kit when I would train and everything, and I just thought he was just the coolest. And so I always had this place, like in my heart, where I wanted to represent my family. Both my parents are English. They moved over. Everyone lived in England, and that always kind of really resonated with me. So I went to these U.S. camps, and I did okay, but I struggled to kind of like it just kind of didn't really feel right, So I was continually like writing letters, to the FA, and like sending them little VHS tapes and stuff like
That's great though, yeah.
And this started at 15, like when I was still playing for the local clubs and before I got called up to the US. And I was just like, please, like I want to be a part of this, you know? And so finally, just after my freshman year, they were like, right, we're going to be in the States. Playing in the States, we're playing Canada, like come for a trial. So I went to Alabama. Yeah. Like, whoa. Middle of nowhere. Yeah. Did a 2-day trial, and I absolutely loved it. Like the girls were great. The coaching staff was super fun. I just enjoyed it so much. And then literally flew home like a week or two later and broke my leg. So I was out of, exactly. So it was such a drag. Highest to lowest within a span of a few months.
Everything was mapped out, and then
exactly. And that just seems to be the way my career is kind of gone. So it's been kind of crazy, like managing those situations. Like I got fit, did as much as I thought I needed to at the time. It was like 2005. I did really well at college. the European Championships were being held in England. In Manchester, they're played at the Etihad. And I didn't make the squad. And I was just like, whoa, like, I was kind of building my identity around being a part of the England setup,
Yeah.
you know. And people would ask me about it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't make it, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of just pull yourself away from it and go, like, I have to be my own person,
Yeah.
you know. I have to continue to work on my weaknesses, continue to work on my strengths. And once I kind of separated myself from that, I felt so confident. And then, so I went away and worked on it for like 4 years. I was like, right, if I ever get the opportunity, I'm going to be ready, whether it's 2006 or 2009 when it finally kind of came back. And I was fit and I was just ready to go. And I finally got the call again for the 2009 European Championships when I was playing professionally in New Jersey. And I thought it was a joke. I thought it was just a really cruel joke. Someone called my coach called me into the office. And I'm like, right, England wants to
because you made it so you made it so apparent to everyone that that's what you wanted. You thought maybe someone.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know. I just thought, like, I'm going to work really, really hard. I'm gonna win a professional contract. I'm going to play. I'm going to do well, and that was all happening. And actually, I think one of my teammates, Anita Santi, was playing for England at the time as well. And I think she mentioned to our old manager, Hope Powell, that I was back fit and I was doing really well. And then they were like, okay, well, come back over. So my coach called me in and said, you know, like, England want you to go over there again for a camp. And I was like, shut up. Like, I didn't believe it at all. And then they're like, no, really. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just felt free. Like, I had no fear. Like, obviously I was 4 years older as well.
Yeah.
But I was just, that was it for me. I was like, right, I'm going. I'm taking this with me.
I know that the feeling you talk about being free. I kind of got that a little bit recently, but at the opposite end, similar to when you said, when I didn't get in the summer squad. Having been involved with the team for so long, I'm kind of like thinking, oh, you know, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to be here. And then it didn't happen. And like you said, I just felt like, okay, I'm in charge now. Isn't
it weird?
I'm in charge. No one else holds anything else over me. So whatever happens next is down to me. It's not someone saying, doing me a favour, I'm picking you, you know, you've had your injuries, but I'm going to take you. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, it's on me now. And and it's that is a nice feeling.
It's really strange. I don't know how to explain it to anyone. You kind of just have to go through it where you're like, okay, well, that's, you know, in terms of what's the worst thing that could happen, you're like, well, actually, that sucks, but there's other things that are much worse, you know, and it just, you need that kind of perspective shift, don't you, sometimes? I
agree. I don't think it helps. It helps, you know, it helps you kind of see things differently and makes you more open to new things because you're like, well, I should probably stick to this because it's got me where I am. It's got me in this situation. I probably stick to this kind of attitude. And then you're like, okay, well, there's a few things I wanted to do, but I didn't think it was the right. But now I'll just take them on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great lesson, I think. And yeah, it got me to kind of where I am today. And I think it's going back to something my dad mentioned. Well, to me when I was younger was about taking opportunities, you know. So the whole reason that he ended up in the States was because he didn't want to regret not having a go. Mm-hmm. And that was something for me that led me to take on, you know, a Swedish opportunity. You know, I'd spent 3 years in the pro league in the States, and it had disbanded after 3 seasons. And okay, well, everyone always says this is a great league to go and play in, so let's see how it goes. And I can always come back to the States, or I can always do something else. You know. So I tried that. And
so were you reaching out off your own back there, or did you have representation, or did you have coaches who do things for you?
At the time, there wasn't a lot of representation in the women's game, so I knew a friend of mine who was working with somebody, and I said, like, look, I'm trying to figure out what to do and how to get there. Mm-hmm. Can you recommend anyone? And I'm like, oh yeah, try this person. So I did, and you know, they kind of negotiated on my behalf, and it was okay. It wasn't great. So I got there, and the situation was great I was on loan essentially for 3 months. And the situation was great. I loved the team. I just felt relaxed. I thought, well, it was a great new opportunity. Awesome. the season ended, and I thought, yeah, I want to do this again. So I went home for the break, came back, and got introduced to the team at a team unveil, and the manager, or the general manager, unveiled like a completely different coach that I didn't even know. I was just like, wait, this isn't what I signed up for, you know what I mean? So that season was pretty much just a flop for me.
And going into the Swedish leagues, you say it was one of the top leagues. It was a professional league. So you can't have expected that.
No, exactly. You have this like preconceived idea that everything is going to be better.
And you'd almost laid the foundations with a 3-month loan. So
yeah, exactly.
I can just flow into it now and enjoy it.
Yeah, you think this is great. Okay, I like it. Cool. This is just going to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
Again, someone just kind of, what seems to be the trend in my experience in women's football was people just don't do what they say they're going to do, you know. And yeah, it was tough. Like I didn't really play a whole lot. And it was another opportunity for me to kind of just like dig deep a little bit and figure out, you know, what I wanted. And they give me opportunities to think and analyze my situations, and I'll take the positives from it. Like I met a lot of great people. I learned a little bit of Swedish. You know, I got to live in a great country. But it also made me realize that I need to find someone that can represent me better.
Yeah. Who helped you realize this? Was that the guy you referenced before? Who were you speaking to help you come to these kind of decisions?
Yeah, so.
Or were you doing it?
A lot of it was kind of on my own, off my own back, to be honest. Like I would always relay stuff back to my parents. I bounced a lot of stuff off my dad, but a lot of it was, you know, I like to weigh my decisions up.
Yeah,
I think
I can see that.
Analytical about, you know, like, okay, I'll make a list, you know, and just kind of tick everything off that's important to me. And so I thought,
but that's not easily done. That's a skill that you're blessed with, because, you know, speaking with Jamie and things like that, and putting things in perspective and necessarily writing things down and being able to reference them is not something that comes naturally, but it's so simple and so helpful because it actually allows you to kind of see where you're at, if you like.
Oh, definitely.
And that's not an easy thing to do if you're just kind of trying to log it in your head and think, you know, I'm doing okay, but I'm not doing okay. I could push for this, but, you know, I could go home. Like, just saying all that in your head is not as easy as seeing it. Discussing it with your dad, I'd imagine you discussed the points that you were saying, and he'd help you come to the decision of whether you were ticking the box or not ticking it.
Yeah, it was always a weird one, because I think, I don't know how you kind of work these things through, but it's for me, it's quite a feel as well.
Yeah.
You know, so you're thinking these things, and then you do get to a point when you're like, okay, is this? I think Jamie, we actually spoke about this before, where you're having a chat with yourself or a deeper conversation where you're kind of like,
he loves that one.
Am I really, you know, am I really getting to where the issue is, you know, and am I really, you know, soul searching, so to speak? So for me, like, if things aren't sitting right, and I can't stop thinking about them, I know that it's not right.
I think, like, you know, even with the list or with any way of doing it, you're still going to get to the bottom of it, and it's not going to say yes, and it's not going to say no. So you just kind of, I think the feeling is so important. Yeah,
you have to interpret that based on...
Because you're not going to be able to go through a checklist and it say, right, this is the direction you need to go. That's just not going to happen. At some point, you're going to have to go, right, I need to do this, and I actually can't explain why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that kind of is a pretty nice segue into what happened and what led me to City, really.
Yeah.
You know, I was at a club in Lincoln after I left Linköping, and at that particular club, I was approached by some of the current players there, and they were like, yeah, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. You know, they're going to be full-time? Great, awesome. I got there and it was just a disaster. I was like, nothing happened that they said was going to happen. Yeah. I was constantly like ringing the coach. I was like, can we train? Can we do some extra sessions? You know, I probably drove my neighbors crazy doing like burpees and stuff in the living room and all sorts of things. So I was just like, this isn't good enough, you know. So I said pretty much, hey, I'm leaving at the end of the season. I had a teammate drive me to Manchester Airport where I was going to stay the night before I flew back to California, and I got a phone call off my agent saying like, oh, where are you staying tonight? I was like, oh, the airport, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, someone from City wants to meet up with you, and I was like, well, tell him to meet me at the airport because that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, wow.
So basically, the current director of women's football dropped everything. He was moving house at the time and came and met me there. And that alone was enough to kind of go, okay, they're a bit more serious than some other clubs have dealt with.
These guys out. So at that point, did you think everything in the women's game, people were just talking, no one was actually doing?
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what my experiences were. Even at the highest level, like when I go back into the States, like the 3 years I spent there, we never trained at the same place twice in the season.
Yeah.
You know, we were always at this school, or we went to this training ground, or we went there. You know, like the facilities weren't great. So in my eyes, the most professional environment I had ever been in was at university, and I thought,
yeah.
oh, is that right?
Mm.
You know, so that was really strange. So going back to Manchester at the airport, Gavin, the director of football, came and he basically said, like, here's our presentation, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, how much of this is actually happening? And he's like, well, you know, the CFA, that's 75% of the way finished.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, it's actually happening now? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, right, okay. So that was like one thing I thought, I've never heard that before, you know. So I thought, okay, they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do. They're a new team in the league. So it was a big gamble, but something felt right. And I think it was because they pitched that they wanted to start changing the perception of women's football in this country. And that for me really resonated because I'd come from a background where, like, yeah, do what you want.
Yeah.
You know, you can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter what gender you are, who you are, whatever. Do it.
Yep.
And people are behind you. And I thought, I want to be part of something like that. And that to me is kind of where I see the club continuing to go.
Well, I remember when CFA was being built and the talk of the ladies, like the women's team, and they were so, like, you wouldn't have known it because you weren't there, but I was like, this is happening. They're going to take, like, they want us to take over, and they're going to take over the women's football. So it's amazing that they got you when they got you, because that would have been a hard one.
That's really interesting though. Like, how was that kind of from your perspective? Because obviously you were at the club.
It was amazing. It was like like you say, I wasn't necessarily, I hadn't had loads of false promises, but we'd had I signed for City in 2006, and then a Thai owner bought the club first and foremost. Taksin Shinawatra, Sven Eriksson was the manager.
Yeah.
You know, they just made a load of signings, and you know, people were promising big things, and then it didn't really materialize. It was just kind of I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it kind of ended up with people just throwing money to see what happened.
Yeah.
And then the Abu Dhabi owners took over, and people were like, "No, seriously, this is going to be big," and I was kind of like whatever, I don't really care. I'm just happy to even be playing. So in the Premier League, and then the more the guys took control of the situation, I was like, these guys actually mean everything they say they're going to do. They're going to do. You know, in terms of recruitment, in terms of the bigger picture. You know, building the CFA, building in the community.
Yeah, that was massive.
You know, these guys are proper. They're the real deal. So when they said, you know, we're going to develop the women's game was, you know, becoming more popular and a lot more known and talked about. And it was I just thought it was the right time as well.
I've just been blown away by everything that they've done, really.
Yeah.
And they didn't need to do that. And you know, you can say what you like, you know, in terms of the outside perspective is, you know, just throwing money at it. People, you know, they always.
But I think that's a real, like, a glance at Manchester City. People would say that anyone who, you know, knows anything about anything can see that it's not that. It's there's a whole bigger picture, and they're like the opposite of what you talked about when people just talked about it but didn't do it. They're the opposite. Completely.
So it's such a refreshing thing to experience. It really is, you know. and hopefully they continue to kind of go in that upward trajectory, and it's just going to get better for women's football, in my opinion. Who knows what's around the corner? Obviously only they'll understand really what's in the plans for the next 5 to 10 years, but I'd like to continue to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Well, how does that feel? There was five of you guys at the start.
Yeah. Yeah, we went from just having some really strange situations. There would be 5 of us that were full time. We'd go and train at Platt Lane, have like a little razz on the cage, and then go and do some weights. And then like on a Tuesday night, we'd meet up with the rest of the squad on Wright Robbie's AstroTurf pitch down the road. So.
And did you 5 guys? Were you all clear that it was going to happen, or was it still like?
It was still pretty sketchy going. Before that, things were kind of not as smooth as I think we wanted them to be. But like with any new project, there's always going to be growing pains, and I think at the time that could have been made more clear to us. Yeah. But going back to your point, is things always did get resolved. Yeah. And that was the biggest difference. Yeah. That when we brought something up that we thought could be better, they did something about it. And that obviously allowed us to win a trophy in our first season. Yeah. And achieve the heights that we did in the following seasons as well. Yeah, and
now you guys are really established, and I think that's good. There's loads of positivity coming from it.
And it's raised the level of like the rest of the league, and hopefully that takes us to a good place. Come the summer.
Definitely. I think it's really exciting for everyone. Like you say, off the back of you guys really made England proud with soccer. Like before this summer gone. Mm-hmm. With the journey that you've been on previously, and then. A huge summer for the country. It was a great feeling. It was tough. Like I said, that was me rising above it, because of course I wanted it to be me. But whatever, the guys done great and people were happy, and now it rolls in nicely for you guys for the summer coming.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 2015 was such a blast as well.
Yeah, I remember watching it. It was unbelievable.
Really? See, that's interesting, because obviously we were in it, so we don't really know, other than what people have told us, like how it was kind of perceived and stuff. But
yeah, it was really exciting. It was really good.
That's so cool.
I swear, it was a really good buzz around the country. That's the thing. That's the thing about England. A lot of people can be quite negative, but who isn't negative all around the world in certain points? But when something good does happen, like it is a really, really big buzz. Yeah. And that definitely happened in 2015.
Oh, that's nice to know that.
No, it did, and then obviously it coincided with women's football getting even bigger, and the professional side of it, and the guys are on loads of careers and stuff's coming from it. Like we talked about, it's the perfect time for you to be doing your degree and stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of like the transitions, you see, people like Alex Scott who are just like plastered all over the TV. Like I see her now more than I did when I was playing.
I can imagine.
So she's just done remarkably well, and it's so nice to see how hard she's worked and the accolades that she's receiving. And I hope that the future transitions kind of continue to go that way. Like for me, I'm getting older, and you think, okay, well, what's next? And being the pragmatic type of person that I am, I'm always going to try to stay ahead of the curve, I think. Yeah. So at how old was I? 31, I think, 32. I thought, right, I can't do this forever. I'm very much aware of that. Yeah. Don't necessarily think it's going to happen now, but I want to be prepared, so I started doing coaching badges, and then I got the opportunity to do a master's degree, which was something I never thought I would do, but the opportunity just happened to be right, and I got the opportunity to do the master's degree of sports directorship at Manchester Met, and it's honestly changed my life. As cheesy as that sounds, I don't think I would have learned half the things that I've learned so quickly if I hadn't have gone through that experience, you know. So a lot of it was about leadership, and they start at the most fundamental points, you know.
Yeah.
You're learning about yourself, and a lot of the times people don't understand how they're perceived, you know, they don't have that self-awareness.
Yeah. I think that's really hard to understand.
Yeah, and I definitely didn't have I didn't understand that about like myself. I didn't understand like what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were, and how people kind of picked up on that or liked things, didn't like things. And so by going through that process, I kind of thought, oh gosh, like I really need to be better at this, or I need to be better at that, or I'm good at this, you know, and how can I use that as like a strength? And that really helped me, and it just gave me a better opportunity to build networks, but then also grow an understanding of the actual arena itself, you know, professional sport, but also just business in general.
Yeah.
And the most, you know, basic things that kind of apply to all areas, I suppose, not just business, but, you know, everyday situations, like relationships, making sure the effort is there.
That's one thing that I find that, you know, in trying to discover the best way of handling football, kind of helped me handle things off the field a whole lot better. Totally. Like you say, like relationships, how I communicate with people, and trying to make the best of all situations. I think that's one of the things I really love about my kind of footballing journey. I think it's helped me grow as a person and kind of appreciate things for what they are. So,
like, how do you, like, when you say that, was that like specifically maybe some of your teammates, but then also like away from football?
Teammates, being able to handle, you know, the obvious ones not being played by the coach, him not picking me, being able to handle that and kind of find a way of moving forward from it. You know, Jamie spoke to me about just going and saying, okay, like, you've made your decision. You're the manager. I'm the player. That's done. What do I do now? You know, I'm not in here to give you a hard time. You know, I'm a part of this team. I want this team to do well. So, you know, Tom, in this current circumstance, Tom Heaton's going in. I've got his back. I've got the team's back. But at the moment, you know, please don't take what I'm saying as I'm giving up. I'm not. I'm here to fight and I'm here to play for this team. And if you need me to play on Saturday or Tuesday, I'm ready. Mm-hmm. I'm so ready. But right now, I respect your decision. I'm going to have a little look at myself. I'm going to work on the things that I need to work on. But ultimately, I'm not here to give you any other headache other than, can I get him back in the team?
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to have to worry about my attitude. You're not going to have to worry about slacking off. I said, I'm going to treat everything respectfully. I'm going to look after my teammates. But I just need you to know, I need to be sat in front of you here, that the fact that I'm not reacting in a aggressive way, or that's not me saying I don't want to be here or I'm giving up. I want to do what's right. You know, that's on the field. Off the field, you know, people worry about you, don't they? People,
of course, yeah.
People worry about you, and as a younger me, the first thing to do when people worry is just to go, it's okay. No, don't worry, it's okay. No, it's cool. I'm fine. And like, rather than just saying, yeah, you know what, I'm a bit down at the moment. It's tough.
Yeah.
Because they want to help. At training, for instance, your teammates who are not necessarily your family, friends, yeah, everything's fine. But, you know, another one of the guys, they can say, you're all right. And you say, not really, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gutted. I'm gutted, but just kind of watch me, have my back for a little bit, and I'll let you know when I'm cool.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, I think, is a great skill.
It takes a big person to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think it empowers other people. Like, it really empowers other people. It gives them the ability to help you like you'd want to help them.
Yeah.
To give people that role just gives them that much more help in your family life, and for me makes it a whole lot easier for us to work as a dynamic.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to have those people like around them, obviously, to support, but then also in the team. And that's something I didn't really realize until maybe a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I always just kind of saw that my teammates were almost like acquaintances, you know, and I just thought, actually, that's not a great way to spend your time, you know. And I think those experiences translate, you know, to people in every day walks of life, whether you're working in an office or what
Yeah.
have you, that you're going to have people that you get on great with, you're going to have people that you don't get on great with. This is your working environment, but you can make it better,
Yeah.
by putting putting that effort in, building those relationships, and then when you do find someone that you trust and that you do click with, you can
Yeah.
share those things. Because, I mean, goodness knows I've had to do that a lot lately, and I know that there are people there that I can trust that won't go any further, and I do know that their intentions are good and stuff, but there are some that you're going to divulge a
Yeah.
bit more to than others, and I think it's so important for people to know that even though like football is perceived as this kind of like machismo, egotistical sport,
Yeah.
that there's still human beings.
Yeah.
People are still gonna have good days, they're gonna have bad days, they're gonna make mistakes, something's gonna happen in their family or whatever, and you can't just be fine all the time. That's
Yeah.
not healthy. You know what I mean?
It's really not. It's really not, and I think it's it is a nice feeling, and one of the best ways for me to kind of help me realize that is how strongly I feel for other people when they're hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think this is a great opportunity to bring Jamie into the conversation, and he can give us his insights into what we've been talking about.
So, guys, love the conversation, and Karen, I've got a question for you about the pressures, from a woman's point of view, and the game expanding the way it is. How are the pressures now for a female footballer?
Yeah, because I mean, as you say, the game has accelerated so quickly over the last 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm.
New sponsorships have been brought on board. Television obviously is one where we're attracting much more of a wider audience, and that's something we want. We want the game to continue to grow, but with that, comes responsibility and expectations. So, I think what I've experienced is that the wider the audience gets, they pick up on everything. They can pick up on, as you say, like if you're playing, great. If you're not playing, like you're in the stands, like
Save gets made, you get zoomed in.
Just things like that. So those little things kind of start to get picked up on, but also the pressures that come along with investment, and
do you feel that then? Because you'd really say that all of that's going on around you, and you're still playing football.
Yeah.
So is it something that the women have? They have their eye on that.
That we're conscious of it, I would say not particularly. I think maybe people will make a bit more of an effort if the game's on TV in terms of like their appearance or something. I don't, but it's probably the social media that's actually taken over in that sense. People are kind of like trying to grow their profiles more, and I think that is something that people are more conscious of and deliberate about. But in terms of you're constantly being approached by potential sponsors, so whether it be personal, whether it be team or whatever, the contracts are starting to change. So if it's appearance fees, if it's bonuses, like those sorts of things are starting to change. There's definitely more money coming into the game. So, people would argue that, is it still pure in that fun sense? Is it still attractive in the sense that it was originally because people are doing it out of sheer enjoyment? Those are the things that I've seen that have started to change, where like more ego, more type of
personalities are changing.
Yeah, exactly. And then like performance starts to drive as opposed to that team orientated type feeling. Those sorts of things. So
it's not just how good at football you are necessarily now.
It's like, what else can you offer?
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, I didn't really think of it like that, but that makes perfect sense. Like, are you a personality? Are you, what else can we get out of you, and vice versa?
And I think that's different for you for the women's game, because you're almost the trailblazers for the women's game, aren't you? So if you think back to when you were that 10-year-old, 12-year-old girl in California, and football there is enormous, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, why is it so? Why do you feel? I mean, I went to high school in California, so and I just remember I've got this image of, they used to say girls soccer, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like.
But we know that over here. We knew that over here.
So why is it? Why the difference?
If I'm honest, I don't really know for certain. My perception would be that it's perceived as a girl's sport in the States.
Oh yeah, because the guys don't play it as much, right?
Yeah, obviously you've got the NFL, you've got basketball, baseball, ice hockey, and those are all very much like male-dominated sports. So when you look at football, the only real success on the men's side was it the with the Cosmos, and was it the NASL? Was that what it was? The North American Soccer League in like the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge. They were selling out massive American football stadiums, and they were attracting world talent. And you're like, wow, okay, that's incredible. But then just went, and they had the World Cup in '94, and obviously that brought more attention, but
why the girls?
Yeah, exactly.
Why
so
just the girls?
Who knows? All I can really speculate on is if we're the trailblazers and the pioneers of kind of women's football. Obviously, there are many more people that don't get the credit before us. America started that journey 20 some odd years ago. So they had the people before the Mia Hamms, the Julie Foudys, the Brenny Chastains, that were playing because they loved it, and they found ways and opportunities to put themselves on the map by playing abroad in organized tournaments with the national team. That like if you listen to some of Julie Foudy's stories about how they started, like Michelle Akers, how she got involved, and it was probably through the university system that probably helped kind of really bed the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
That would be how I would perceive it, but it's always just been like that for me. Like when I was a kid, it was like, girls are
playing
soccer most likely. Yeah.
And if you fast forward to today, with all the experience that you've got, and I think that I love your journey, that there are certain things that have happened in your life that have led you to being in Manchester, led you to your international career. What would the Karen say to the young Karen?
Oh, this is a really hard question.
Because there's a lot of young Karens out there.
Yeah.
And actually I want to distinguish between Karen and KB as well, because I think there's probably two sets of advice there.
There's bipolar, just like
so,
right down the middle.
So
Split personality.
I'll let you answer that with whichever one. What would Karen say to the young Karen, and what would KB say to the young KB?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess first and foremost, to distinguish between the two. Like, I didn't start getting called KB until 2009.
Right.
And that was basically the start of this like football persona, and that's kind of actually started to blend into my normal life, so it's kind of come full circle. But that basically started out because we were all trialing for pro contracts essentially, and people didn't know my name. And the manager just like started shouting like KB, and people were like, oh, that must be what she's called, so that just kind of stuck. But what would I tell my younger self now? I would definitely tell myself in the football regards, like just to kind of believe in myself more and kind of don't doubt yourself so much.
You like stay cool kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
good and bad, just you've got this.
Like, yeah, it's always been a question of, am I good enough? Am I good enough? And it was never for like someone else. It was always me. Like, I know I've got the potential. Like, how do I reach it? And there was always a bit of a searching. So it would almost be something where like trust your preparation, trust your training, trust, you know, if I could tell myself then what I've achieved now, like trust in what you've done and believe that you can continue to achieve what you've achieved.
Yeah.
Because I personally don't look back enough and focus on positive things. Like
Never.
how often do you go back and, you know, you look at, I made that save and plucked this out of the corner and man of the match awards or whatever, and you don't really remind yourself of those things.
I think people, you know, say if they would say to you, you know, you've done this, like, how does that make you feel? And the only answer I can ever give is, like, I don't feel anything. Ask me when I'm done, and I've had 5 years of, like, thinking about, wow, I did this.
Yeah. Like
well, I said, right now, like, that's...
Isn't it strange?
That doesn't matter. It's about what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that I'll be able to sit down soon. Well, not soon, hopefully. But when it's all said and done, and I'll be like, yeah, that was brilliant.
Yeah, and you're dead proud of what you've achieved.
I was a part of that. Yeah.
And it's funny because you'd think like, oh, I should give myself a bit more leeway and a bit more credit now, you know, and I would tell just I think myself as Karen,
yeah.
just to
good distinction.
Yeah, just to kind of continue to build those relationships and build those friendships because and I've got some incredible friends and they've always been there for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder how many have I kind of let go as well. Do you know what I mean?
And it's interesting that you said earlier on when you were talking to Joe, you mentioned something about, and it was the way you said it. You said my right back and my centre half, and it was like there was that intimate kind of professional relationship there. But it was, how important is that for you from a playing point of view? That relationship with your back four or your back three?
That's a good question. I think it's really important. I think it's massive.
I think you need to be able to refer to them as that.
Yeah, because I think if you can't have that relationship, if you can't tell them what you're seeing in a way that they know you're trying to help them, you'll never have that trust. Like you'll never have like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm saying this because I think this is what's best for you, vice versa.
Yeah, I'm not trying to belittle you or
exactly.
I'm trying to help the team.
And you kind of see things as well that they won't see because you're kind of behind them. Aren't you?
I think that's the thing is like you always have to, and I remember like people along the way, but particularly referencing my dad again, you know, he would always talk about, you know, communicating with people that they have to feel your presence, not only like verbally, but physically as well. So they need to feel that you've got their back, you're supporting them. But you have to get people to want to work for you and work hard, you know, and so you're not going to get that by like constantly berating people. You know, you have to give credit where it's due, regardless of what it is, who it is. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, like if someone makes a top class save in training and I'm like, oh, it's that person.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to say like, wow, what a save that was.
Credit where it's due is a great thing to say.
It's huge.
That's important.
So I firmly believe in that, regardless of who it is, what it is. Like if you've done something really well, even if it's in training and an attacker like makes me look like an idiot, I'm just gonna go, you know what, fair play. Like you've made me look like a real idiot there.
What do you learn from the men? You personally, and what does the women's game learn from the men? Okay. And then we're going to flip it as well because there's because today you see on the TV, and you know I love watching the debates, and the Chelsea women's coach is on there, and you know you've got there's more diversity now. But from a playing and a being perspective, what does Karen learn from the men?
Well, obviously I watch like just so many goalkeepers. You know, like when I was younger, obviously I was obsessed with Peter Schmeichel, so I tried to watch him whenever I could. You know, with the advent of the internet, that makes me sound really old. Yeah. But you know, you could obviously like access anything whenever you wanted, so you could watch like YouTube clips of whoever, whenever. You know, you've got Huddle, you've got all the match analysis stuff that you
Yeah.
can get whenever. So I'm constantly trying to understand how goalkeepers deal with different situations. Like for me particularly, I want to continue to get better in terms of like my distribution, having the ball at my feet, and those sorts of things.
I know that feeling.
And that's my personal struggle.
Yeah,
Like,
me.
so I mean, there's another way that we're quite similar, you know,
Yeah.
that we get berated with the ball at our feet. So it's something that I use it massively as a tool, but I also really enjoy, you know, watching men's football because I've watched it with my dad my whole life, and it's become a big part of what we do, how we've grown our bond and our friendship and stuff like that. You know, in terms of the speed of the game, the speed of thought, you know, the manipulation of the opposition, you know, just by exploiting space, understanding where pressure's going to come from, or situations where even spread or block saves were never in the women's game up until maybe a couple of years ago.
Right.
So we started working on that. You know, how else can you include futsal? How else can you include handball in goalkeeping and what you're doing? And it's constant like searching of like next trends, and you see that a lot. You know, obviously in the men's game, and you try to adapt that. And so, in terms of looking at the men as players and how they conduct themselves on and off the pitch, I think you learn a lot of what not to do sometimes. But also I think what I really admire about the guys is like the pressures that you guys are under.
Yeah.
You have to deal with some horrendous like criticisms. You have to deal with this. People just haven't got a clue of what's going on like in the real world in terms of the footballing world. They have their own perceptions, and they like to make, you know, judgments based on those perceptions that just don't mirror reality. And having to put up with the noise and that sort of thing, I think it's incredible how even the young lads at 15, 16 seem to just, it's just noises.
Yeah.
You know, you seem to really be able to partition that. And that's something I always kind of wondered how we're going to cope with next.
I think you do, but like I think you do to a certain extent, but you don't. You know, no one likes anything bad being said about you.
Yeah.
You know, no one likes being the brunt of a joke or a flippant comment, or like you brush it to a certain extent, but it still hits you. Same as it still hit you. Same as when you can still hear one. No matter how many people there, one person is got something to say.
Yeah.
Like we said before about not being able to take the positives of our career. Like you could have a whole like thousands of people clapping a save. One person could say one thing, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't care about the thousands. It's the one that just kind of gets in your head and makes you think like, oh.
Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? You're like.
Yeah, but that's natural. So if you I think even the strongest of mentalities and the most strongly criticized who can still go out and perform, like it's still chipping away at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's refreshing to know that, because there is kind of like, you know, you see almost like a barrier go up.
Yeah, your poker face has to come on, but
Yeah.
like behind, you know, your head's still steaming about it. The little stuff. It depends on the day or the mood or the feeling.
Totally.
Some days, like literally nothing can rock you, and some days someone just can go, "You're shit," and you're like, "What?"
Yeah, like
You know,
that particular day, and you don't
And
know
like,
why.
wow, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. But no, I think that's something that's really admirable about like in the men's game. It's just that poker face, that steely kind of determination. You know, that it's just nothing's going to get through. But then to understand, obviously, that we're all still people.
Yeah.
You know? I think people forget that. I think we're not, you know, the FIFA players. You know,
What can the men and the men's game learn from the women's game, or from women?
What I've been told that people seem to like the most about the women's game is basically the lack of simulation. You know, people hate the fact that, you know, everyone's just rolling around on the floor all the time. You know, so everyone really likes, and they seem to like the fact that, you know, the women's game is a more pure method of playing football. Like, but I don't know. I think we just kind of get on with stuff a little bit more. Like, it's just like, right, I've been tackled, my leg's broken, I'll just get on with it. You know what I mean? But it's. I don't know if that's just a.
Do you think there's a chance of that changing though? Because
that's what I'm worried about. Like,
because of what comes with it.
With
the TV and with the analysis.
Yeah, I do genuinely think that that's something we have to try and mitigate, because the fact that more people are going to be watching, there's going to be more writing on games, so people are going to be trying to, nick those yards and. I
think in the very near future there's going to be harsher punishments for it, which is therefore going to mean that you can't. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Because you could get I saw in Scotland they were doing a retrospective 3-game ban.
Is that right?
Yeah, and things like that, and that's the only way it's going to come back.
Wow, yeah, I was saying something similar to my dad while I was back at home about how you see a trend in refereeing where they're starting to really go after just petulant types of behavior, and they're starting to be harsher and harsher on that, and not so much on the actual physical challenges. I mean, some of them are still, a bit questionable. But the actual just petulance, they're starting to really crack down on that. But yeah, in terms of other things that maybe the men's game can learn from the women's game, I guess something that always has been close to my heart is education, I guess. So for me, something that I've seen in being in the environment at City and involved in different academies is that I think there's a social responsibility that the clubs should have about developing the whole person, and it's not just about, this is a bit of a meat market, how can we develop the best
it is a meat market.
footballer, how can we get some sort of a more emotional connection that's going to say, if your son wants to play at City, how are you going to choose City over another academy or something like that? They look after him, they educate him. He's going to get these types of experiences that are going to make him a more holistic. A more whole person. So that holistic approach from a club, I think, would massively separate one from another. So I think in terms of educational pathways, it is possible. And it just depends on how much emphasis people place on it. Because you can do it, but people just don't seem to want to, which is fair. It's not fair.
Because the industry is just we need them to be good now.
Yeah, and that's just so unreasonable, isn't it, when you really think about it? Yeah.
But unfortunately, the way I see it is, if a good person comes and says we want them to be a good person, there's 10 people saying we want you to be good right now. And these guys need to be the 10 people, and the one person we need to be good right now. And everyone else saying, whoa, we're going to make him a good footballer, but there's loads more we can bring.
Yeah, and that's something we're still trying to learn. We're very much focused on development in the women's game at the moment as well. But like I said, in 10 years' time, we might very well be in the same predicament.
Well, if we are in the same predicament, then it's people like yourself who've contributed to it. Oh. As in terms of the good predicament of what comes from it.
I hope so, yeah.
Sporting director.
Oh yeah, we can organize something, I'm sure. You come work for me.
I'm ready. So, Karen and KB, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciated. I knew it was going to work, but it's been great to spend time with you. Talk through how you process things. Your story is great, inspirational as well with what's going on in the women's game, but on a whole wider scale. So thank you for your time. Appreciate your honesty, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching. And anything more that comes from it, hopefully we're going to get some good questions. People are going to be really, really interested in what's going on. So, I think there's more to come from us as a combo. So
yeah, absolutely. I can't thank you enough for having me. I really like the concept of what you guys are doing, and I think it's a really valuable piece of work for the community. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Much appreciated, and good luck.
And all the best with everything. And yeah.